Just when you start, just start playing the music right off the bat.
Just start playing the music.
Yeah. Yeah. Welcome everybody to another special edition of Secret Podcast. We are filming for episode 4 of Mandalorian. And I gotta say, it was a good episode.
Mm-hmm.
I think last week's episode was good because I think we were able to talk about it and share ideologies and thoughts and kind of Simon's exegesis beliefs in religion and Mandalorian. And after all that, I came to the conclusion you guys convinced me that was a good episode. Today,
You need no convincing.
yeah, there's no convincing needed. There was definitely some things that made me like question what I watched. Like, how is this possible? Like, um, I'll just start off, Jordan, if you don't mind.
Go for it.
Why did the kids survive being in a belly of a beast for a full night?
They really
24
glossed
hours.
over that, didn't they?
Yeah, like they just like I would understand if they just went straight to rescuing him, but they camped. They
Yeah.
made a camp. They rested, and then they took a full day to climb.
Yeah.
And then this raptor they called regurgitated this boy, and he was
Right.
harmless. He was unscathed.
I
That made no sense to me.
I get the idea is that the suit maybe protects him or whatever. I think the thing that's weird to me is why would it be waiting until the next day to
To feed its
like, and
kids.
how did they know it would do that? I just feel like that's playing a risky game that is unnecessary. They also keep going like, if we have to be stealthy, if we do anything too quickly it'll kill the boy, but like, I don't know, man, this is just a big animal. I have a hard time believing it's got like it's holding him hostage or something, like that's just not. I think they could have accomplished what they needed to without setting up all that, because clearly
Right.
the purpose of this is like to give what's her name, Bo-Katan, an excuse to like go on a mission with like these other Mandalorians.
And
There's
like be a
Simon.
leader, right?
Yeah, Simon just joined.
Nice.
I will.
I'm not gonna lie. I'm gonna miss our Mexican calendar in the backdrop, but
I can
that
add
was pretty
it.
good.
I can add it in that white spot right there just to fill it in. But
Because you need more
so
stuff on your walls, right?
I do. I
Yeah,
do. Yeah, it's just there right there. It just looks
Yeah.
weird. So
it's a nice corner though. So we already started. The
okay.
show's recording, Simon.
Hey! This is Simon, Secret Hideout Podcast. What's up?
Oh my god. He's
So
turning into one of those
we're just,
TikTok influencers already.
yeah, already.
What's up? This is your boy Simon. Just want to talk to things. Mandalorian episode 4, midway season.
Was it lit, Simon?
Oh my gosh.
Was it lit AF?
No cap.
AF.
No,
Okay.
no cap, huh, Simon?
No, whatever that means. No cap indeed. Yeah, flexing and all that stuff.
Yeah. So Bo-Katan, this was really focused. This is like her episode, right? Like her coming out as a leader, proving her worth. And I appreciated that. I like that. I think Bo-Katan is a great character. I think she deserves her own spin-off, to be honest with you. After the Mandalorian, just to build her character up more. But yeah, again, Simon, me and Jordan were just talking about how stupid. I was talking about how stupid the idea of this boy lasting a whole night in the raptor's belly
Yeah.
and coming out unscathed, like still talking. I thought he was dead when he's all. Blah, I thought he was
Right.
dead. I was like,
Right.
oh yeah, that makes sense, right? He was in the belly of a beast for a night or 24 hours, but he's like, Daddy, help! I was like, no way. That kind of ruined it. The fact that we're still talking about this right now for
Right.
this long, I think proves it was dumb. It kind of almost ruined the episode. But again, like this redemption story of Bo-Katan, I'm really appreciating. And I know before you guys have mentioned, you don't like secondary characters or these other characters coming on side, kind of taking away from the story. Does this affect the story at all for you guys?
Not really.
Yeah.
Like she's functioning very clearly as a supporting character in this story. Like she's not a guest star who showed up out of nowhere, right? Like
Right.
it's clear that her role in this is pretty important. And I think it's not just Bo-Katan, right? Like we do get a little bit of Din Djarin kind of like trying to be like a good dad, a good Mandalorian dad, and teach his kid the ways of the Mandalore. And so I think the theme here is like basically a character settling into this culture, right? Like her and Grogu, right? Like we're learning a bit more about it. I thought that she had maybe a cynical view of this whole situation, where she thought that she'd found this tribe of people that she could use to take back Mandalore. But I was surprised at the end when she just tells the what's the name of this, the forge lady,
The armorer.
armorer. She just straight up tells the armorer, like, yeah, I saw the mythosaur. And she's like, okay. She's like, no, I
like,
really
yeah,
saw it.
all
It's
right.
like, yeah. Like
This is the way.
I thought that was, but like she's not lying to them, and she's clearly getting kind of into it, right? What she does with all this is still not clear. Like, does she intend to, follow their way, or is is this going to be sort of like a side quest for her, where maybe she learns a few things, but then ultimately goes back to kind of the less fanatical, Mandalorian culture. But it's interesting to see her in a sense like reconnect, because I guess on some level, I mean, she grew up in Mandalorian society, but then like that got destroyed, and maybe on some level this is her being like, oh wow, I'm here in a little Mandalorian tribe, right? And there's a sense of like being part of it and feeling like she belongs. So yeah, I think it all fits, and it doesn't bother me. So the only thing that bothers me is the same thing that bothers you, which is that they're just like, oh yeah, like they still got the boy, we'll go back tomorrow. Like, why? And then like, and then
We gotta plan this war party out, you guys.
yeah, we
It's like,
gotta
yeah,
camp for the
but-
night, and yeah.
I feel
And-
time is of the essence here. I don't know.
And the thing I can't get over is like they could have just flown their ship up like really high or something, right? And then like
And
drop
drop
down.
down. Yeah.
They had to like land and walk and climb, and here's the thing that's really getting to me. So this planet, we've seen like 3 different giant monsters that eat people in this show so far. So they're on this planet full of giant monsters that want to eat you. On some level, maybe that makes sense. Like, okay, it's probably a good place to hide. No one's going to want to go here. No one's going to want to go to this planet. But it also, like, maybe don't just stand around out on the beach in the open waiting to be attacked. But like, it's seriously, like, they're all out there on the beach and they get attacked by this thing out of the water and they seem surprised. I'm like, I feel like a guy should have been aware of this. And now, like, this kid walks, like, a couple yards away, and this thing freaking flies out of the sky, picks him up, and takes off. And I'm like, you guys know these things are out there. Apparently, this has happened before. They say that. It's killed people before. They have done nothing to prevent this from happening again.
This is the way.
Put up a this is the way.
This is the way. I really feel.
Put up
I really
a
feel
fence or something. Like, there's got to be ways they could deal with this. That's my only real complaint, is it feels like they didn't put a lot of thought into the fact that they've been here for a while. It shouldn't be this easy, right? For these monsters to get the drop on them. Yeah, anyway, sorry, continue, Simon. Go ahead.
No, I just felt, okay, the armor lands on this planet and all these kaiju beasts everywhere. It's like, yep, this is where Mandalore is gonna grow. Right here.
Prime real estate.
Yeah, prime real estate. Yeah, they really reverted back to cave people, right? Like literally. It's like, so if there's a giant beast coming, instead of like the advanced technology, and that's why I feel this is more like a fantasy rather than science fiction, because I feel that like the idea was, oh, why don't we create a perimeter? Why don't we have all these technologies, right? And then, like, lo and behold, Bo-Katan has the only ship. And how did they get there, right? How did they get there, right?
They must have a ship.
Like,
they must have a ship
that apparently does not work in hunting this thing down, and stuff like that. So I was just like, okay, this is weird. But at this, okay, so there's that. So that part of me was thinking that this is weird, but like the other part of me is like, well, this is very similar to like a dungeon in a way. It's not a dungeon. Like the closest thing I could say is like it's the Dragon Slayer kind of motif, where it's just like there's instead of this pure virgin that's like that they have to rescue, it's their next generation, which is equally as valid, right? And so like and to excavate, no, not excavate, but to climb and to all that ordeal, it goes back to those fantasy kind of tropes.
Oh yeah,
where
they're
it's like,
definitely digging into like fantasy tropes. It's just, you know, they live in the world of Star Wars, so like they have
Yeah.
spaceships, right? So they,
right.
It's a little they push it a
Again,
little bit. They push
yeah,
it a
you're
little
right,
bit.
because I think there's that dissonance because like the jetpack thing, there's a limitation. Like I'm running out of fuel. Shucks, this always happens. And then Bo-Katan
Yeah.
with her ship, zoom,
Because
shoots
they're
out,
okay.
right?
So I really liked the jetpack chase. I thought that was fun, right? Something we haven't really seen that much of, and it's cool to see a bunch of Mandalorians using their jetpacks in combat, right? Fighting a giant monster. But yeah, I did start to wonder. It's like, man, I guess they just run out of fuel whenever the plot decides they should run it, because like they're flying all over the place. That dude, the father. So he's been in the show this whole time. I guess we just never met his kid, right?
Right.
And it's just hilarious to me that this dude's got to be like 7 feet tall, and he's carrying around the biggest goddamn.
That's
gun.
Jon Favreau. That's Jon Favreau.
Is that Jon Favreau?
Oh, is it
in the
really?
costume?
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
He's carrying around the biggest goddamn gun I've ever seen in Star Wars, and he takes it to go climbing up this cliff face. He's still got this thing. He's like, oh, right? He's flying around with it. That thing's got to cut his flight time in half. Just the weight of this giant gun. So like, there's a little bit of convenience for like, oh, they just ran out of fuel after like 10 seconds of flying that first time. Like, come on, this is pushing. That setup was a little bit flaky. So.
Right.
Yeah.
And they had enough to go back and fuel up again for the journey. Like,
yeah.
So it's not scarce. You guys just don't.
Right.
You guys don't fill up all the way. It's like, well, I got a quarter tank left, so I'm still good. I'm not gonna need a full tank at all. It's like, come on, man. One interesting scene that I think Simon might be able to use his theology on. We finally get an answer of how they eat in front of people. They don't, right? So they gather around the fireplace. They all get their food. Once they get their food, they just scatter and they eat in darkness, or they eat by themselves. And you could tell that really threw off Bo-Katan. Like, that wasn't a comforting feeling, right? And I think in all cultures, eating with each other is a very intimate thing, right? And for this specific culture, eating together is quite the opposite. It's offensive. To see each other's face. So, to see this tight-knit crew, and tight-knit when it comes to just the religious ways, not in relationships, right? Because it doesn't seem like there's any kind of relationship between each other. There's no, it's all formality. There's no like, hey, what's up, brother? How's it going? There's no like, what's like, there's no joking around. There's no playing around with each other. It's just, what does the book of Mandalorian say?
Yeah.
Right.
This hyper obedience to the creed.
Right. And I think I see one instance where Bo-Katan kind of questioned, or it looked like on her face, like, well, what is this? There's no community. And who knows, maybe she might be the one to like let everyone know there's like a strength in community. There's a relationship in this. So she might be the one to kind of break, their religion and not the Mandalorian, because that's all he knows, right?
Right.
So for him to kind of be like, hey, let's do this, they're like, we taught you, shut up. But for Bo-Katan to, come before and tell everyone like there's another way and you can still be a Mandalore, I think that has more oomph to it. Oh, what do you think?
So that's funny you mentioned that. I was rereading some stuff lately. One of them is this book by Northrop Frye called The Educated Imagination. One of the topics he covers is this idea that every society is kind of like artificial, since it's built out of conventions, right? So social convention is like this thing where everybody kind of has to adhere to it to some degree just to maintain some baseline of social cohesion. But also it's really artificial and kind of arbitrary. So like if you go back to like the 1950s, if a man went outside, it was expected that he put on a jacket and a hat, right? Like it would be too casual to just go to the office in like a t-shirt, right? That's just not a thing they did. Today in American society, like no one, like we have a very low, I don't know if there's a word for it, but like conscientiousness or something, like we don't have a high bar for that. Like, we don't expect people to really put on airs or maintain a facade, right? A social facade as much. In other cultures, they still do, in other parts of the world, right? So yeah, this is like a very old fashioned culture where like social mannerisms are really, really highly conventionalized to the point where like they have specific phrases you're supposed to say at specific times, right? And yeah, no one looks at each other's face. They only know the facade. They only know the mask. And your true face is something you keep secret, right? Something that apparently they share in common with like what the Tuscans and
Oh yeah.
yeah. And I think that's a trope you see in a lot of sci-fi actually, is like alien cultures where, you know, people hide their faces and never show them to anybody outside of like their immediate family or something. And hell, there are places in the world today where some people, like women in the Middle East, right, do that. So yeah, it's just a really, really highly contextualized, highly homogenous culture, which also is why they can't really integrate with any other cultures, right? Because like they can't function in a pluralistic society like the one we live in, right? Because they just they have to follow all these rules all the time. It just makes it really hard. So yeah, that's a really interesting observation. I've been thinking about that, like, yeah, how does that work? Because like in this book, this guy sort of, he points it out because in his opinion, a lot of the value of education and developing the imagination is about being able to free people from social convention. So in other words, if you're raised in a certain society and you don't really go, you don't travel much, you don't experience other societies, other cultures, and that's the only one you know, then that becomes, it's almost like a trap for your brain. Like you can't really imagine how things could be different. Like this is exactly what's happened to Djarin, right? Like this is all he's known, and you can't really imagine things being different, right? He follows the way of the Mandalore religiously because it's the only thing he's known. It's the only thing he has. And in Northrop Frye's estimation, a big part of like going to college and studying the humanities is like to be able to sort of rise above that social convention and see it for what it is, to see it as the artificial thing it is. Because otherwise you could be trapped in it forever. Like, you know, your culture can't progress. It might get stuck in time, right? And you develop these sort of biases in your brain based on your very limited knowledge of what life is like. So anyway, yeah, no, that's a really smart thing to interpret out of the show.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Some initial thoughts on that for me was okay. So their homogeneity is what makes them the collective, but then once actual basic resources need to happen, where like eating or defecating or whatever it may be, like they go on their own, and so it's just like there's this, I think their culture, this extreme fundamentalist culture, is an expression of Mandalore in that regard. Is like, okay, there's this facade of that we're together, we're homogenous, so that there's a facade of that, like this artificial convention, but deep down we're still bickering with each other. Like we can't trust each other fully in that regard. We're hyper individualistic. Like we have to go like unmask ourselves by ourselves in a vulnerable place. Like the whole idea anthropologically and historically of eating around the campfire is to protect one another in a vulnerable moment. Right. And the Mandalorians, I guess, a part in their creed is like, no, this is the way. You gotta duke it out with the wilderness, you know, stuff like, I don't know, but like, and that definitely needs to be, because I think that is an expression of why this fundamentalist sect is waning. You know what I'm saying? Is because deep down they are still kind of like, no, we do it this way, and yeah, we'll die trying doing it this way, kind of thing. Where the reality is like, well, let's look back here. Is that the best thing to do, or is the proliferation of the faith the thing to do? And if it is the latter, then we need to have that imagination, that I forgot how you said it, but that's exactly right. We need to have that imagination to go beyond it. It doesn't mean that you forsake it. You know what I'm saying? And I think that's the beautiful thing about Djarin. He keeps it in a pluralistic kind of experience, right? He remains faithful to it when he meets his friends on different planets and all that. He keeps it, and that's what makes him unique, and that makes him actually really attractive, right? But when you're trapped in it, that it goes falter.
So he keeps one foot in the secular world, the way, and they don't, right? They all kind
Yes,
of just
that's right.
live is in
That's
the
right.
what's it called, the covert or something,
Yeah, the
right?
covert.
Yeah.
Right.
So it's yeah, and I think that's actually a really good point. Yeah, the last thing they should be doing in the middle of the night on in hostile territory is just wander each of them wandering off by themselves, then taking off their helmets,
Right.
right?
Right.
Like
Right.
that's it's probably
Yeah.
not a great move.
Yeah, exactly. And like
Yeah.
there was as a reference to that, there's a movie called Alpha. It's about like it's like this kind of it's about the first relationship of man and dog, and man and wolf.
Oh yeah,
And
yeah, no,
yeah,
I remember that.
phenomenal. I thought it was a great movie, but there's a scene where they're all around a campfire and they're eating, and then like the moment they lose the sense of like of vigilance, like a saber-toothed tiger just rushes in and gets one of them. You know what I'm saying? And it was like you're jeopardizing your war party here, right? And so it's just like, yeah. So it goes to show that Mandalore, the culture is still fractured. I think that's what it was expressing. No, I
Well,
shouldn't say that's what it was expressing.
they're so insistent on suppressing their individuality, right?
Yeah, right.
And so they follow these rules to really enforce and emphasize what the sameness, that they're all the same, right? And you're right. I think that does mean that anything jeopardizes that, they're willing to put their lives on the line. It's to maintain that facade,
Right.
because it's just so important to them, right? Because it is their identity, and they don't want to allow their individual identities to surface in society. Maybe because it threatens cohesion or something. But like,
Yeah, maybe. Right.
yeah,
Yeah, we don't. Yeah. So yeah, I think that's a really good observation and something that. So those are my thoughts on it.
Yeah.
You know. So.
So another thing is like so this season he like recovered and he's a convert again, like so quick. And I thought there's gonna be more of a struggle or more of a story arc for him to be redeemed and washed of his sins. But uh, saying all that, it's like they kind of in season one there was, and now I think about it, there's a big struggle that he had with his faith, right? Because he falls in love with that girl from the farmer's planet, remember? And he wants to like settle down and create roots there, and then he sacrifices himself. He's like, no, or sacrifice his love for her, and he's like, you know what, the kid's better off here. And then the ATST shows up. And he's like, never mind, I gotta take him with me, right? And then he breaks the code of the, what is it, of the assassins, or
Oh.
right, so you cannot be assassin anymore, part of that crew. And like usually a Mandalorian's word is his word, right? Simon, are you sleeping? Yes, he's sleeping. He's out. He's cold.
looks like
Morning.
we lost his connection.
I sure
for a
did.
bit.
Hey, I'm back. What's up? This is Simon again. Lost internet. It's all good. I'm back now, guys. Sorry about that.
And then in season 2, he the struggle gets greater, right? Because he takes off his helmet a couple times. Takes his helmet with Bill Burr's character to help him out, and then again because I'm gonna say he loves Grogu, right, as like a father,
Right.
and so go ahead, Simon.
I was gonna say, going back to what Jordan said about Northrop Frye's. What was it? Northrop Frye's book again?
The Educated Imagination.
The Educated Imagination. Why did he do that? Like in regards to the sequence of season 2, he saw other Mandalorians without their
Right.
helmets,
Right.
right? And so it's like, oh wait, you say you guys are Mandalorians and you do this? And it's like, this isn't the way. But then we didn't see it, but he probably struggled with it. But the moment someone that he loved, Grogu, was in jeopardy, it's like, well, if other Mandalorians took their mask off and I want to take off my mask at this moment, I'm going to do it. You know what I'm saying? And so it's just like, yeah. And so anyways, I just wanted to bring that up.
Yeah, no, it furthers my point because my other thing is I was really disappointed. There's just, you see the struggle these 2 seasons, and then the beginning of season 3, it's like, no, forget it. I just want to be clean. I want to be back with the second. I'm just like, wait, what? Like you fell in love with a kid. You have a purpose. You have a reason outside of your sect, your people, and then you just want to be redeemed out of nowhere, and like it happens in the first episode. So that's why I'm thinking Bo-Katan's going to be that next character to kind of like change things around to force a change in that culture and maybe bring people back home.
I'm gonna bet money right now he's gonna take that helmet off again this season at some point. It's gonna happen, right? And the reason I say that is because, yes, it's true he did go and like cleanse himself in the living waters and all that, but why did he didn't just go off and do that immediately? He did it because the armorer told him to, right? I think what's interesting about him is he's kind of willing to kind of do stuff in order to maintain social cohesion and get the right outcomes, right? And so if that means, okay, I'll take off my helmet, then he'll do it, even though he doesn't want to, right? And then he goes back and he's like, well, you're no longer a Mandalorian because you took off your helmet. And he's like, well, what do I got to do? And he's like, you have to go bathe in living water. He's like, all right, I'll go do that, right? And I think he's willing to be flexible, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah,
and
he's
I
willing
think
to be flexible.
And I don't think him going back to the covert is solely personally motivated. I mean, it is personal, but it's not like he wants to go back to the covert. Remember, I think what Ahsoka and then what happened in season 2, like Grogu made a choice. And and Grogu's like, I don't want to be a Jedi. I want to be with you. I want to be with Djarin. And so he accomplished his quest in season 2, Djarin did. But then Grogu comes back. Is like, well, what am I going to do now? It's like, well, I'm going to train you as what I remember in my own.
He knows how to do, right? Is be a Mandalorian.
Exactly. And not just simply any kind of Mandalorian, like a Bo-Katan kind of Mandalorian, but like the covert.
So interesting thing about that, because I have a hard time seeing Grogu growing up to be one of these Mandalorians wearing a little Yoda-shaped Mandalorian helmet. Especially since what was Yoda was like 800 years old or something in the original trilogy.
Yeah.
So I do wonder if, yes, this is what he's doing, but like Grogu didn't really. Here's the thing. He didn't reject the way of the Jedi. He's a baby. I don't think he even understood what Luke was talking about. Right. All he knew is he wanted his father back. Right. He wanted Din Djarin back. That's what he's doing. And now he's back with Din Djarin, but I don't think he's there to like become a Mandalorian. Right. He's there because that's just where Din Djarin took him, right? And he'll go where Din Djarin goes, right? And vice versa. And so I think, at some point maybe there might come a point where like because Grogu maybe doesn't accept the way of the Mandalore or something, like he decides to depart, right? I do think I get what you're saying, Josh, where like there's a lot of this like internal struggle, and then this season it hasn't really happened. I suspect it's coming. I think it's coming. I think he went and like cleansed himself and he's back now, right? But he now, after everything he's been through, I doubt he can just stay there as part of that covert for the rest of his life now. After what he's done, after what he's seen, they're going to go and take back Mandalore, and who knows what will come of that. He's now caught up in the story of the Jedi because Grogu still, he has powerful Force abilities, and that's not going to go away, even if he's not training with Luke Skywalker, right? Right. It looks like, so we haven't talked about, there's this flashback where Grogu like has like, he remembers what happened.
Yes.
How he ended up. Keep in mind, that flashback would have been like, what, 30, 40 years prior? Because he's like
50 years.
Because he's like a 50-year-old baby. So who knows what happened between, like, there could be a number of these flashbacks, could be a whole story behind it of how he got from the hands of that Jedi into the hands of the Empire, right?
Right.
Who is that guy? Is he like an established character? I have no idea. Just some guy?
I don't think so. Yep.
Just
I think.
Okay.
Yep. Just random Jedi. Just introduced in the story.
A black Jedi too. I think so. They had. At first, I thought it was Samuel L. Jackson. I was like, oh no, that's impossible.
Really, you thought they got like 60-year-old Sam Jackson?
I did, dude. I thought they did the whole face generation thing. I was like, that's not Samuel L. Jackson.
Yes, there are other black Jedi people. That's we live in the 21st century or whatever now. So, but yeah, no, it's interesting. They introduce this new character. We don't know anything about him. We don't know where they're going. Presumably, though, the idea is they feel that this baby Grogu is like really important, maybe because he is that powerful, and they know that the Empire wants to try to clone him or whatever. So like they're going to take him somewhere and hide him, right? Obviously they failed, but we don't know exactly when or how that happens. So maybe we'll find out. There could be more to come from this angle of the story, right? And we could see other Jedi enter the picture. and other Imperials enter the picture. Because again, in the last episode, now we know that there's these like Imperial operatives still working within the structure of the New Republic, right? Trying to get back to the Empire. Presumably they still want to clone him, right? And maybe they want to use it to clone a new body for the Emperor, because that's eventually what they end up doing. Again, because he's force sensitive and I don't know, midi-chlorians or whatever. But yeah, I think that's going to come back, and I think it's going to disturb that little, like, I don't think they're not going to stay there in the covert for the rest of the season. That obviously wouldn't be very exciting. This storyline about, you know, the Empire and the Jedi and Grogu's force ability is going to come back, and I think that's going to pull him away from, you know, the comfort of this, like, you know, culture that he knows, and he's going to have to maybe make a decision about whether he's committed to that culture or he's committed to Grogu, right? Yeah, I know. There's more to come, and I suspect we're gonna see him take off that helmet at some point again.
Yep, I think you're right. I wanted to go back to Bo-Katan, and you guys mentioned that because I think I jumped into it, but you guys mentioned that like her questions about the mythosaur towards the end, like how maybe we see a more or less cynical Bo-Katan, and her embracing actually maybe the trueness of Mandalore. I don't know, but like I kind of still feel that there's still some ulterior motives to the questions. You know what I'm saying? It's just like if so I read it, or I interpret it as like basically her saying like, if I did see a mythosaur, what would you do? You know, it's just like kind of thing. And then that got me thinking a lot, like, you know, this kind of setup for Bo-Katan is very similar to oh my gosh, what's the main character's name in Dune? Paul Atreides. Yeah, like how like he's gonna be part of the Fremen, and
Right.
how he gets accepted by the Fremen. I really feel that there's kind of this dynamic going on here. And then I thought about historically, like basically, this is just me being a Bible nerd, but I was just like, the idea was in the intertestamental period, that when the Jews regained their country back, where there was the Maccabees, right? And there was this guy named John Maccabeus, or I think his name, anyways. This family, the Maccabee family, aligned themselves with like a holy priest warrior order called the Hasidim. And they basically separated themselves from Jewish society, but they are the descendants of the Pharisees during Jesus's time. But like these were warrior monks basically. And I'm thinking what is developing right now is kind of like going with Dune, like the Sardaukar is this sect, this covert sect, but like it's an extreme religious sect that aligned themselves with a more moderate Mandalorian, to say like, hey, we got the extremists, and I need to reunite everyone else. And I feel this is what I'm gonna sense, or this is what I'm predicting, how they're gonna unite together to regain Mandalore back. So
Right. The Sardaukar are not on Atreides' side, right? I think they're
they're not. You're right.
They serve the Emperor.
Yeah. Right.
No, it's no. That's actually a pretty good point. It is similar to, how Paul Atreides becomes, Muad'Dib, and kind of accepts this new role, but also, I mean, so spoilers for anyone who hasn't read Dune, but like it's a double-edged thing, right? Like he becomes, by sort of ingesting more spice, he develops like his precognitive abilities, becomes more powerful, more powerful than the Mother Superior, whatever her name is, more powerful than the Emperor, right? And takes over the universe, but also loses like his humanity. And there is like this manipulative, exploitative aspect where he uses the Fremen, right? To get what he wants, and they kind of use him. And it's not like he's being dishonest with them, but also it is very exploitative in that he's willing to sacrifice their lives. He's willing to leverage their religious fervor to his own ends. Right?
Okay.
To ends that they either aren't aware of or don't even really understand, because all they know is their religion that was created by the order that created him. So like, it's really messed up the more you think about it.
You're right.
And so simultaneously, like you're impressed by his development and his abilities and his he becomes like this incredibly powerful person, right? On multiple levels. But at the same time, it is kind of scary because he also becomes a bit of a monster at the same time. Dude, I don't know though. I would be surprised if Jon Favreau wants to do that in Star Wars. I've always thought of Dune as an ironic take on the same genre as Star Wars, where Star Wars is a romance and it's an adventure. Dune is also a romance, but it's deeply ironic and it's a tragedy, right? It doesn't have a happy ending.
Sure.
It's almost like the only character in Star Wars that I think really approaches the weird double vision that Dune presents is Kylo Ren, right? Who is like simultaneously Ben Solo, but also turns into Kylo Ren. If you ignore the Rise of Skywalker, which kind of just says no, he's good now. But if in The Last Jedi, the way he's presented there, where like he's both compelling and scary at the same time, right? And you kind of get him, and you get where he's coming from, and you kind of admire his focus and his determination, but also, you can see how he is going to burn everything to the ground, including himself, right? By following the path he's on. I don't know, man. There are similarities there, but I have a hard time believing that Jon Favreau wants to make The Mandalorian that much of a downer in terms of like,
Okay.
I don't know.
That's fair.
We'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see. We don't really know where this is going yet. So.
I just bring this up because I love it. There's a lot of talk. Like, I just see this dynamic, and like,
Right.
I don't want her to be, because there is this sense of her like really softening,
Right.
But at the same time, like, my take is still, I don't want to disappoint myself at the end, and she still is that cynical person that still wants to
Right.
gain power and stuff like
Right,
that,
right.
So yeah.
Yeah, it's Disney, guys. It's not going to be Dune at all. It's not going to come close to that. So don't get your hopes up.
Yeah.
All right, very good.
But is there anything else, guys, or wrap this up?
I think I'm good. Again, just to take a quick look at it, sort of in the larger framework of things, like I like where it's going. This definitely felt more like, hey, we're going to take a break to do some character development because it doesn't really move the plot anywhere. But I'm okay with that. But I like where this is going, and I hope I've heard that like this show isn't really getting the ratings the views that they want for it.
I heard that.
Yeah,
too.
Which would be
the last episode was the lowest one, they said. But I mean, I don't know if that's saying a lot, because it's not saying it's the lowest ever, right? It's just saying it's the lowest one so far, and their lowest could be, the highest for another show. So,
yeah.
But their last episode, for the majority, was boring as hell.
Yeah, no, I'm aware of that sentiment.
It was probably the most slowest episode of all of the Mandalorian episodes. It started off really fast, and then just hit excruciating a halt. It was like, almost like a cartoonish halt, and you're just like, what's going on?
I also
like,
read where did I read? It was a review. Maybe it was the Ringer. They said, the biggest problem for them, for that reviewer with the episode, wasn't so much that they switched gears. They did like that whole thing on Coruscant, but they said I would have liked it a lot more if I hadn't already seen Andor. The biggest problem for this episode is Andor exists, and we've seen like a better version of this already. We've seen like a better, higher budget,
That's
really
a good
top
point.
shelf version of this. So now I'm like, it's good. And if it was like, if Andor didn't exist, after watching the episode, I mean, man, I want to see more stuff like that. But we've already seen more stuff like that, and it was better. Yeah.
And it was much better.
Yeah.
You're right. That's a great way of saying it.
The animated series spends a lot of time in Andor, so I think you're right.
So
yeah.
I just want to end with one more jab. I think it was hilarious that basically Grogu's armor is a coaster. So I thought that was great.
Just a little,
Yeah, just this little disc. Like, it's like, what is this gonna do?
Yeah.
I think
Armor.
I would like to put a wager that he will be shot, and that thing's the only thing.
Of course,
right there.
Exactly. You're absolutely right. That's exactly right. So yeah.
All right.
But
Anyways.
guys, I think another great episode. I think Mandalorian's heading in a fun direction. Looking forward to the rest of it. Hopefully, you guys let us know what you guys think in the comments below. Get us to talk about something else other than Jesus for once on a Mandalorian episode. With that, again, music playing by J7. Big shout out, Jupiter 7. Go check out his stuff on all the platforms, SoundCloud. You'll enjoy it.
All right.
Peace.
This is the way.
This is the way.
Josh, say it. Say it. Hurry.
You don't got to go home, but you got to get the hell out of here.
That's our creed. So get out.